Hello, dear friends. I'm Holly Elissa Bruno. I'm so glad to be with you. You're being welcomed right now to trauma survivors walking each other home. And today it's just me. I often have Priscilla Rodriguez with me or Denise Rokiki, but tonight it's just me. And I thought I would come on and talk with you and invite you to consider very simple, very powerful, compelling theme. And the theme is happiness. Happiness. Is happiness what you thought it was? It sure isn't what I thought it was. And before I begin, let me say that every week we meet, we talk from the heart, from the soul, from the mind, from the inspiration that comes from many places about how to walk each other home as trauma survivors. How can we live a life of meaning, of import, of comfort, of joy, of growing? How can we live our lives? That's the question we face here. And we face it because trauma survivors are taught anything but to live our own lives. We're taught, I don't focus on me, take what you like and leave the rest to see if it's about you. But we're taught, honey, you're worthless. You are worth nothing. You're only worth what you can offer to other people. You're only worth what you can achieve or accomplish for other people. You're only worth what you can bring, the kind of fame or reputation enhancement you can bring to the family. Happiness. So is it possible for trauma survivors when so much of our upbringing told us you're not worth anything? You're never going to be worth anything. I don't even like repeating this stuff because it takes me back to what I heard. And if I didn't hear it with words, I heard it with messages. I've just had wonderful, powerful conversations today with people who are facing or have faced trauma. And one of them was talking about how I'll keep this very confidential, but he was talking about how he was in the presence of a person that had traumatized him when he was a child. And he had thought the traumatizer was not this person, but his brother. So he was fine going to this funeral where the person was going to be because he thought, unless this brother is there that traumatized me, I'm okay. However, and here it is about all the nonverbal, all the triggers that can come bodily because the body does keep the score. He said, Holly Elissa, it wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. It was the tone of voice. It was the inclination of his head. It was the way he moved his eyes. It was the phrasing he used. I knew instantly this was my abuser. We know. And we live on Earth, trauma survivors live on Earth with the potential any moment to be reminded, and being reminded is not the same as being re-triggered. We live every moment with the potential of having reminders of the abuse that shut us down. Why is it so crucial? Why is it so crucial that trauma be so much part of who we are? I don't have a choice about the trauma that took place. I do have a choice about how I am with it. And I didn't always believe I had that choice. I would get enraged at a counselor who would say to me, you don't have to let that happen. No one can hurt you without your permission. I'd be going, F you. Are you kidding me? People can hurt me in a heartbeat, in a blink. and a nasty look, they can hurt me to the core. And I have a choice about that? I don't think so. That's what I believed years ago, because that was what was true for me years ago. I didn't feel like I had a choice. Being a trauma survivor for me means I was hurt, beaten, incested, abused, shamed, made to feel like I was worthy of nothing. I was beneath anything. I was a horrible, ugly, everything despicable person. And some of this came from my mother's Pentecostal background. There were a lot of teachings about you're going to hell or you're going to heaven, and you got to get chosen. You just don't get to go to heaven. You just don't get to have a good life. Happiness is not a guarantee. And some of you guys, it's hopeless. Give it up. That's what I was taught. My older sister used to call me a heathen because I didn't like doing the regular church stuff, and I was not a church girl. I didn't like it. So I was a heathen. Here's what this program is about, and why am I asking us to consider happiness today? Trauma survivors are not allowed to be happy. We're only allowed to support the happiness of other people. We're not allowed to have dreams. We're only allowed to live somebody else's dream out for her or him. We're not allowed to have happy relationships, because who are we to be in a relationship if we've killed off most of ourselves or become people pleasers? Our true self goes out the window every minute we're with someone else. I mean, this all relates directly to the ACEs scores, the Adverse Childhood Experiences scores. With a score like mine, 1 to 10, I'm 8. With a score like mine, the jury is in. I can't have happy long-term relationships. I can't have good health. I can't have a long life. I can't even keep my teeth. That's another thing that came out in the last couple of years about ACEs. ACEs are types of trauma that we experienced that shaped our lives and changed our lives. And why does trauma shape and change our life? Because in the moment that trauma strikes, the survivor, or the person that might not survive, doesn't think she's going to survive, or the person who's being traumatized feels like, this is it. I'm not going to make it through this. I'm not going to survive this. They're going to kill me. I'm going to die. And if it isn't a physical death, my brain is going to go insane. This might be something that's more particular to me because I was raised by a psychotic mother, and both of my grandmothers were imprisoned, were put into what was called insane asylums because of the trauma that they faced. Did they have mental illness? Probably, possibly. But are all of us who are trauma survivors troubled? Yeah. And especially if your whole life as a woman is being battered and abused and incested, and you can't complain, and you can't have an identity, and you can't have your own credit cards, and you can't, what's not to go crazy about? So trauma is life-stopping, because in the moment of being traumatized, I fear I'm going to die. And I have felt I was going to die so many times. And there are times when it was so terrifying. And this is another type of trauma. It's not fearing that I'm going to die. It's asking, could you please end my life now, because it's so bad? Because it's so bad. There are times in my house where as a child, I would hide out because there was so much violence going on. I would pray that they would not find me, because if they found me, it would be worse than death. Trauma to me meant being stuck in the loop of feeling I was going to go crazy. And I observed my mother being crazy. I observed her in those states of insanity. And I knew what can happen when someone is taken over by insanity. And I thought that was my fate. So trauma is being scared to death that our lives are going to end. And then that scared to death state is something that remains in our brains. Because life at its basis is, am I safe or am I not? If I'm safe, I can do all kinds of things. If I'm not safe, I can't do nothing but survive or die. One of those two things is going to happen. Happiness. How is it possible for trauma survivors when what happens to our brains is our brains get stuck into a terrorized pattern of fearing? The fear leads to hypervigilance. The fear leads to not being present. The fear leads to continuously repeating patterns of abuse. The fear leads to never trusting. The fear leads to all kinds of incapacities. When we talk about being fear-based, trauma survivors are fear-based because we're scared to death it might happen again. And it was so unbearable the first time that the mere memory of it, I can spend my life avoiding. So if it comes back again, how on earth can I ever deal with this? Now I'm 79, almost 80 years old, and I am reckoning with the fact that I'm going to die sooner than I'm going to have less life left than the 80, 79 years I've had. And I do not want to come, as Thoreau said, to the end of my life to discover I have not lived, but I mostly don't want to come to the end of my life terrified of dying. I don't want to come to my life terrified of dying. I have no clue what happens on the other side of dying, or if anything happens, if I just go poof, if I'm done. I don't know. But I do know that I want to enter that state as alive as I can. And maybe my brain will be wiped out by then. I don't know. But my spirit, I would like my spirit to courageously say, this is the end. It's time to go to the other side. I don't know if there's another side, but I am enthusiastically open to the possibility. So let's get down to this question of happiness. And by the way, this program, as I said, is called Trauma Survivors Walking Each Other Home. It's a weekly program. If you're in the United States, it's East Coast time, 3 to 4 p.m. If you're in London, it's 8 p.m. And wherever else you are, whatever time zone you're in, we welcome you. And we gather and we talk about what it's like to be a trauma survivor and how to make our lives, how to live meaningful lives. And so today I was thinking, I feel really happy. You ever had one of those days? It's just a lot of things are happy making. And I thought, well, I'm really happy here. What can I discover in talking with you about happiness? And by the way, if anything I say triggers, re-triggers, troubles you, and you don't feel safe, please take care of yourself. I always have a bottle of water here. I also have, I have things I can do like breathing, or I do emotional freedom technique, which is tapping on acupressure points to say, I'm okay. I'm scared and I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm reminded of terror that I faced and I'm still okay. I love myself despite being taught I'll never be okay. So I love myself and I'm okay. I have all these things that I can do, but one of the things I want to tell you that's available now, it is called a warm line for people that are being traumatized or have being reminded of being traumatized or just hurting. If you need to connect, that's the theme here about being happy, connecting. If you need to connect, look up on your iPhone, just look up trauma warm lines. You'll find a number of them, or maybe just one in your state. You'll find them in different languages. You'll find them that are 24/7. You'll find some that are just during work hours. You can call them up and just, you don't have to prove yourself any way, which way, just say, I'm hurting. I need to talk with somebody. And other people who are themselves survivors will be there, and they'll listen and they won't judge you. So I want you to know that if anything comes up, you have an escape route. You have the top that'll lift off the pressure cooker. So why am I happy today? What happened that brings me joy? Well, for one thing, I have connected deeply with people. Happiness for a trauma survivor is about finding loving connections and living in them. So I have a potential client who's got a real challenge and wants me to come in and work with her organization. And I said, yes, I will. And I believe when the magic happens of connecting with people, I mean, first, I go into a group of 1,000 people, 100 people, 30 people. People aren't going to trust right away. They're not going to trust. And so if I go in as myself and I let them know, you can be yourself here. You don't have to participate any more than you feel like you're safe participating. You don't have to, you can pass. If I ask you to do something that's not comfortable for you, you can say, I pass, or you can say, I want to think about that. I'm not ready to talk. We will honor that. So first things first, what do we need before happiness? To feel safe in our own skin. Bessel van der Kolk wrote the seminal book, The Body Keeps the Score. We don't feel safe in our own skin. For years, I couldn't go above the fourth floor because I started having panic attacks. And I thought, because we didn't talk about panic attacks when I was a kid, started feeling that I was going to go crazy like my mother. Well, no, I wasn't going crazy. I was having a panic attack. What's a panic attack? It's when the brain's terror system takes over and we can't think straight and we need to run and get out of there. We need to fight and survive where we are. Well, I didn't know any of this as a kid. In fact, when I was a kid, no one talked about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Or if they talked about it, they called it shell shock, and it was only something that happened to men who had been overseas in a war. Bessel van der Kolk says the real war is at home. We know that the majority of sexual abuse takes place within families. We know that. That's what happened with me. That's what happens with many of us. How can we be happy? And what's giving me joy today? Well, number one, I connected with people. I felt safe. I bring safety inside of myself to other people. And I don't invade boundaries. I ask people what they feel they can do. If they don't want to do something, I honor that. So giving people, so already happiness based in safety. I'm safe. Ain't nobody going to come through that door and hurt me. Ain't nobody going to hurt me. Safe. That's a number one. Before any kind of happiness can happen, it's like, am I safe? Then happiness happens through connection. That I had up the wazoo today. I was talking with a client, and I was talking with a person that had been recommended to me. He said, I will not reveal anything about him, except that, like many of us, he's a trauma survivor. And I listened for an hour. I listened, and I thought, okay. And I asked, what is it that you want? What is it that you need? What is it that I can help you with? And then I simply intuited that I needed to tell someone my story. It took me a long time to learn that people don't trust unless we share ourselves. I used to be such a good listener. I still am. But the only thing people trust is if I would tell my own truth. and they could see that I'm human, and they could see that I hurt, and they could see that I have experienced a lot. And just by the honesty of saying I am an incest survivor, just owning that, I mean, denial is so much easier. Dissociation is an everyday, every second opportunity. Dissociation, as you probably know, is just leaving my body behind. When I was being incested, I just got used to leaving my body behind. I couldn't bear what was happening. I couldn't bear that it was a relative that was doing this to me. I couldn't bear how ugly I felt. So I left my body behind. And I just kept going up, going up, going up, flying through the stars, swinging on the moon, swinging on a star, aiming toward heaven, where celestial beings would play lyres and flutes and harps, and I'd be saying, happiness based in safety, happiness based in connection, happiness based in truth telling, happiness based in self acceptance. Happiness is based in accepting that I'm going to be a learner the rest of my life and choosing to be a learner the rest of my life. When I have felt stuck, I'm not happy. Who do you know that's stuck? That's happy. When you feel stuck, standing in place, no place to go, no place to grow, can you be happy? Some people can. Maybe people that aren't trauma survivors can. I mean, I can be happy sitting in a rocking chair watching my plants grow. Every morning, doesn't matter if I got to pee, I get up and I look down at one of my perennial gardens, and I see all of those flowers, the daylilies blooming just for today, just for me. I see phlox, beautiful pink phlox with what they call white eyes, like white centers. I see echinacea before the petals invert. I see cleamies, happy and joyful. For months, how do they do that? How on earth do they do it? I see foxglove, digitalis, speckled and beautiful, pied beauty, speckled beauty, as Gerard Manley Hopkins spoke. Happiness, what is it for you? Is it being loved? Yeah. Yeah. Can I control that? No. I wanted more than anything to be seen, heard, and loved as a child. And neither of my parents was capable of that. My mother was on occasion able to love me, I believe, but she was raised not to love herself. And she was often just not able to be there. She just was gone. Psychosis can turn you into other people. Every Saturday, she became her own mother, a raging banshee, screaming all day long. People knew not to come to the house. The Burner girls had their chores. Well, the chore really was allowing my mother to let out her wrath, her rage, her ire. Because if she got really in this state of anger, she could be relieved by yelling at other people. She screamed all day. My ears still reverberate in trauma if I'm with a woman who's screaming and out of control. It's hard. So what brought me happiness today? What brings you, just reflect on it. What brought you happiness today? One of the things that brought me happiness was I was in this conversation with a person I'd never met. I knew it was important that we connect. I had been asked to do this work. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I've studied a lot of stuff, but I'm not certified in this stuff. But I just got it at some point that in addition to hearing him, listening to him, letting him know that I heard beneath the surface of what he was saying, letting him know half an hour later that I recalled what he said, letting him know that what he was saying was moving me, letting him know that as one human being to another, he was affecting me. All of those things I was doing in the first hour, and they felt right and true. It was only when my intuition said to me, Holly Elissa, of course, I can't tell anyone else what to do or what works for them. I'm not about giving advice, but I can share, and this comes from my 12-step recovery, I can share my experience, strength, and hope. And as I share that, by telling you my truth, my story, without beating on myself, with feeling, with compassion, that's when I connect. Because the person listening to me can say, as he did, as others say, wow, you get it. Wow, you've been there. Often they say, you're speaking for me. So happiness was doing work that I love. It's helping people get through the bumps of life with self-respect and with hope. When hope goes away, the spirit flies so far away, we wonder if she's ever coming home again. Trauma survivors are based in fear. We're afraid we're going to get hurt again. We're afraid we're going to get harmed again. We're afraid we're going to be annihilated again. We're afraid for our lives. We're afraid for our spirits. And if I am, in fact, a soul and flesh, which is what I believed as a child, and I still believe, then having my spirit killed, that's death. That's a worse death. It's like being alive in my body and having no soul. It's no wonder that so much of literature, like Faust, is about people selling their souls. And that's what trauma survivors, that's not happiness. Trauma survivors get asked to sell our soul because we're so unsafe. I would do anything at some points just to survive, just to survive. I mean, it's horrible to say I was date raped. And after protesting and saying no, this guy was like 6'7", 6'5", 6'7", really big guy. And I kept saying no, kept saying no. And then I got it. He was not going to ever hear no. I was willing to sacrifice my body because I didn't think I had a choice. And of course, afterwards, who did I hate? Not him right away. It was me. I was the worthless one. Does it sound familiar? By keeping ourselves feeling worthless, we don't ask for anything. You know the phrase, we don't ask for much. We don't ask for much because we feel we don't deserve a thing. What's the phrase? I have a trauma surviving friend that has this, I think from the 1930s. It's a little boy sitting there rocking, I think, and he's saying, nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. I'm going to go out and eat worms. That's a trauma survivor's voice. Nobody loves me. Worse than that, they hate me. They want to hurt me. So I'm going to go hurt myself. I'm going to feel unworthy. I'm going to prove that I'm even more unworthy than they think I am. I'm going to prove to them that I hate myself even more than they hate me, and I can feel how much they hate me. It's a downward spiral. being a trauma survivor. It's no wonder that the ACEs study says we don't live that long. How did I ever get to be 79, almost 80? When my sister turned 80 a couple of years ago, the first thing I said to her was, did you ever think you'd make it to 80? No, no, was her response. A definite no. Because trauma survivors have such scorekeeping in our bodies of anxiety and panic and which turns into illness and the autoimmune system getting taken down. We don't have that great a life expectation. How on earth can we be happy? So, another way, trust my intuition. I knew I was going to be with a narcissist, an abusive narcissist. I saw him at a place that's pretty sacred to me. And I heard him get closer and yell to me, I've been looking for you for years. Now, if I were a narcissist, or if I were still attracted to narcissists, I would say, oh my God, he found me. Man is looking for me for years, but I confronted this guy years ago. He very intently, intently, and inappropriately kissed me without my permission. All of a sudden, this guy was in my mouth. And I pulled back, and I was put in such a traumatized state that all I could do was get out of there. It was fight or flight. This was the story. It was boundaries being totally disrespected, totally crossed. I didn't exist except to bring pleasure to this guy. The next time I saw this guy, I told him, so you know what you did? I did not like that at all. I found that very offensive. He's a narcissist. I watched his face. It jerked a little bit. I, of course, hoped maybe he was hearing, but he wasn't. Because I haven't seen him in years, but he showed up at the venue where he knew I would be. And he yells to me, I've been looking for you for years. I greeted him. I was professional, cordial. It was in the midst of a lot of people, which was good. I just caught up with him, but I was very chilly. You know, this was not meeting of friends. It was meeting of someone that I had met and knew. So after we got through the first conversation, I basically ended it. I said, I'm going to leave. Next day, here's what was different. This brings me happiness. Next day, I figured he'd be back. I don't have to subject any of my inner children to a predator. And here's what was different. I didn't have to practice. For years, I had to practice. What would be a safe thing to do? What would be a way to put my boundaries up? How can I do this? And there's nothing wrong with what I did. I didn't know, and I didn't have role models. I didn't know how to take care of myself. So I practiced. I tried. I failed. I tried. But I learned. And so that morning, when I knew he was coming, that next afternoon, I knew he was coming back. And I knew he would be all about himself. And I knew he would expect me to be interested in that. He came up all ready to talk about all this stuff. And I called him by name. And I said, I have something I need to do. It's important to me. So I'm going to go do it. And I took out my brand new journal. I don't know if I have it, but it's my brand new journal that I picked up at a paper making place in India. And when I start a journal, it matters. It's like a new page in my life, right? So that's what I did. I went over and sat on a bench and I opened my journal and I took out my pen that's actually got ink. It's not just one of those like pretend things. And I love to watch the ink go on the homemade paper. He was pissed. He was pissed. And I didn't care. I didn't care. I'm not about hurting somebody, but I'm about having boundaries. And if my boundaries hurt somebody, that's because that person has crossed my boundaries in the past and is not safe. So I put up the boundary because I'm going to be safe. So what brings happiness? What is happiness? It's being at home inside myself. There's a prayer, a chant that I just was reminded of. It's, may you be safe. May you be healthy. Be at peace in your heart. That's it. Trauma survivors never say trauma survivors unhealthy because we're so intent on just surviving and being hypervigilant every minute. It's not safe, not healthy. Can we be happy? My family's unspoken message that I picked up in a meditation when I was asking my inner child, and Richard Schwartz calls this inner parts, but I was asking, what is it that you'd like me to know? What would you like to tell me? I thought I was ready. This is like 30 something years ago. I thought I was ready to hear, to remember the incest. I knew in my body it was there, but I couldn't remember details. Well, guess what? Trauma recovery means our body only reveals memories, truths to us when we are spiritually able and ready for it. I wasn't ready to have images of incest. I thought I was. I've always been brave. I've always had more courage than self-love. Courage was a way to stay alive, to protect myself. And so I was breathing in and breathing out. I was picturing this little girl, and I watched her. And I knew it was me as a little kid because in my mother's mental illness, she often didn't notice me. And so she took me to get my picture taken with a dress that had the lace falling off. She didn't notice it. I did. My book, Happiness is Running Through the Streets to Find You, Translating Trauma's Harsh Legacy into Healing. That book is from Exchange Press in Lincoln, Nebraska. And it's available. Anyway, in that book, the front cover has a drawing of me as a kid with the lace coming off my dress, my tattered dress. And my mother didn't notice. My mother had to be perfect about her clothing. She had shoes and hats dyed to match her suit. She was just surviving too. She was a beautiful woman, one of the most beautiful in her hometown of Olean, New York. And she used being beautiful to survive. Happiness, is it part of what a trauma survivor can have? For today, I'm here to say, yes, it is. It is. I felt really happy and I feel happy today. What I'm going to do this evening is join, probably I need to wrap this up because I'm going to join a group of trauma survivors internationally. We come together every week to talk about how can we become our own loving parent. We share. We don't judge each other. If I feel myself judging someone else, I just observe it If I can, I let it go, or I just forgive myself for doing it right in the moment, because that's where I am emotionally. These meetings are wonderful for people that need to be accepted, because I can speak, you can speak, anyone can speak without being judged. That's another part of happiness. It's belonging to a group that doesn't judge me. It's belonging to a group that doesn't kick me out or decide I'm not worth it. It was decided for me that I'm not worth it. Happiness today, let's wrap this. Happiness today, even though my little girl told me that my family's message to me was, and she got up close to me and she called me in and she whispered, "We can't be happy, and you can't be happy either." And that was my family's message to me. You can pretend you're happy. You can pretend you're having a good time. You can pretend you're just fine. Thank you very much, but you can't be happy. Life is a vale of tears. And only when you die does everything wonderful happen that's supposed to happen on earth. My uncle, Buster, Charles Riggs, Billy Graham's right-hand man, he was called. He had a rough life. He worked, or he was trying to convert his alcoholic father, my grandfather. He was trying to save people. He was not necessarily a happy man. When I went to his funeral, it was a Pentecostal funeral. They called it his coronation, because he was going to sit, I guess, at the right hand of God, Father Almighty, and nothing was ever going to hurt again. And he was going to meet his wife, and just when she was in just the right shape. I mean, I never understood as a kid when people die, like if somebody dies at 90 and gets reunited with her partner who died at 50, how does that work? These questions don't matter, except they do to children. But today, what matters is this. I got it, that my family's legacy was, you can't be happy. We can't be happy. You can't be happy. You come home with joy. You have joy in your heart. We're going to kill it. And they did. They did. Because it was killed in them. Joy, happiness, being alive, being your true self, those are denied to trauma that traumatized people, because we can't be happy. You can't be happy either. So get over smiling, unless it's one of these. How are you doing? I hope everything's great. Yes, everything's just fine with me. Mm-mm. So I invite you, write me, tell me if you wish. How do you know that you're happy? What's happiness to you? And I'm going to tell you, for me, it's a couple of really basic things. First off, it's feeling safe enough to be happy. Secondly, it's being connected with my true self. When I'm being my true self, I'm happy. I mean, sometimes I'm sad, but basically I'm in a state of happiness, that I can be myself, that I can find myself, that I can be true to somebody that's me, instead of doing all of this people pleasing and pretending and acting and dissociating. Happiness is also connecting with other people in ways that touch my heart and touch my soul. That's the blessing of being on earth. It is connecting soulfully with people in a meaningful way. And that's what happened today. That's what happened several times today. And how does it happen? I open my heart. Sometimes I say it out loud to myself, sweetie, open your heart. Just open your heart. And somehow that is giving myself permission to be fully with that person, to hear that person, and also to connect with that person, and to invite that person to connect with me. I've been doing this for years. I didn't know that these simple practices are what brings happiness. May you too have your simplest of practices, whether it's watching a dragonfly skate across the water, whether it's watching a firefly on a misty night, whether it's watching the Pleiades, the shooting stars, whatever it is that, or whether it's holding a baby, rocking a baby, giving a good long hug, whether it's doing what I'm doing this weekend, going to the Marlborough Chamber Music Festivals and hear beautiful proms, music that lives in my soul, music that I can play back inside myself. Whatever it is that brings you happiness, honor that, including sadness. Sadness is often a precursor to happiness. I honor that too. And I'm getting far better than I ever was at not fearing that if I allow myself to be sad, I will be carried away by a tsunami of tears. I'm going to end there, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Please join all of us next week, Monday afternoon at 3 East Coast time, or whatever time you are, whatever in the world. Come join us to look at how do trauma survivors live our lives and find happiness as we understand happiness. I'm going to stop this recording right here. And I'm sure I want to do it. So yes, and I hope to see you next week or the week after. Fare thee well and be kind to you.